So I wanted to ask about registering the MK party. The former president, well, let me refer to him as the president of the MK party. He says you were merely asked to register this party because he was trying to create sort of like a guise so the ANC doesn't realize that it's the former president that is behind the movement. He says you were strategically chosen. In fact, those close to him say you were strategically chosen because you have no political background, even in starting political parties, which is why you were the person selected to start the party. How do you respond to that assertion?
No, I think that's what you understand. That my understanding is that I registered Umkhonto weSizwe, and I'm the leader of the Umkhonto weSizwe, and then I'm the founder. For him, I was taking his wisdom, asking for certain assistance in terms of understanding how to go forward. But it's not the first time I registered a party. I registered Mazbuye before, and then I registered Umkhonto weSizwe. Do
you regret ever going to President Jacob Zuma to ask for advice and to have him play a part in the MK party? Because now he is the president and you are not.
Well, that's your perception. But talking to Mr. Zuma has always been part of us. As KZN, most of us, we go to him to ask for his wisdom on certain things. That's what I did.
But also, it's not a perception. You told us that he's the president. He was appointed president and face of the party. So when you say it's my perception, what do you mean?
It's your perception that I'm not a president I'm not the leader of the party. That's what we are trying.
I'm saying Jacob Zuma is the president of the MK party. Is that true or is that a perception?
Look, we agreed that he's going to be the face of the party. We then elected him as a president going forward to the government. What is wrong with that?
Not to but he's the president. So I'm saying I don't want to constantly.
What is your point?
My point is when I constantly refer to him as leader, I don't want you coming in and telling me that's my perception. I'm basing it based on what you just told me. You are telling me you elected him as president. What is president? President is leader of the organization. How do you understand the president's position to be?
It doesn't mean that if you are not a founder of the organization, you cannot be a president. But the people who register the party can ask you to say, can you stand for us on this one? We agree that we'll ask him, and we ask him that he can lead us to the government as a president. That's what we did.
Do you regret ever working with him?
I will never regret.
What do you think his intentions are when he is now firing you and other people?
Well, I'm not fired.
Well, he says that you are out. He says that there are people like you who've been trying to hijack the organization. That's why you had to be fired.
Did you have a one-on-one with him?
No, I've had him many times where he addresses the masses.
Telling me the hearsay.
No, it's not hearsay. I've heard him say that to supporters of the MK party. I've heard the MK party itself, under his leadership, release a statement that says that about you.
Well, then that's the information you want to believe. Believe on that one. But I'm saying I'm the leader of the party. There are other issues that we have as a leadership, but that does not mean that I am not a leader of the party.
Are you going to miss more events that the MK party will be hosting? You couldn't attend the manifesto because you say you had a ritual. When can I expect you at the next big event of the MK party as the leader you say you are?
You are not going to put me on the program. I'll take a program that I want to be in, or as I get deployment. It's not the media that must tell me which event I must go to, which event I mustn't go to.
But Khumalo, with all due respect, we are literally days away from elections. This is the most critical time for any political party. The big events that parties hold, leaders are supposed to be there. So if you are saying...
Can I correct you? Do you think that going to a rally is the only way to organize the masses?
No.
You are totally wrong.
That's not what I'm saying.
We have meetings in every places.
When last did you attend the meeting?
Even the last weekend I was in a meeting.
Wait.
During the week,
when last did you attend a leadership meeting?
Why should I report to you?
No, I'm asking that because...
So I will ask you to come to the event.
No, I'm asking you that because I've got the spokesperson.
No. Let me make it...
They've been clarified to me that they've never met with you. Are you saying that you've met with the leadership of the MK?
We meet, we talk. What is wrong with it?
When last did you meet with the leadership that includes the president of the MK, Jacob Zuma?
I can't remember, but it's been 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, after the news that you are fired?
Why are you concerned about that?
Because I'm trying to test...
Is that what is going to make the MK grow?
No, I'm just trying to test what you are saying to us.
No. Let me make you understand. You are trying to be fussy on something that doesn't help the nation. The nation wants to hear the MK party.
The nation also wants to know the truth.
The truth is there.
And my job is to test that.
Leading. You are working for your bosses who are telling you to ask me.
Oh, shame. Like that's such a lazy argument to make, but it's okay. It's okay. It's very... Yeah, really.
Look.
And I won't entertain that. Tell me about the Constitutional Court judgment today, because you...
No, I won't tell you that, because you are being difficult. So I will not deal with a difficult person.
Okay.
You are not helping the country. You want to make things bad, look bad for the party. I'm not going to...
How am I making things look bad for the party?
The organization is strong. The organization is going forward. We are going to win the election 2029. On the 29th of May, we are going to vote for MK, and we want Zuma to lead the party to the government. That is it. There's nothing else.
Am I allowed to ask you more questions, or is that you saying you're out because you think I'm difficult? Do I still have a chance to ask you other questions?
You are not difficult.
Can I ask another question?
That I can say.
Can I ask another question?
I don't think so, because you
Let me
don't
thank
know
you
what
then.
you want to ask me.
Let me thank you then. Jabulani Khumalo, the founder of the MK party. I'm not going to force him to stay on the show, but I'm also not going to let anybody ever tell me how to do my job. If I feel there's truth I want to test, I've already checked with the MK leadership. They said they've not met with this man. So when he wants to lie and say 2 weeks ago I met with them, and I know it's a lie, I've got to test that. But what I won't allow is to be told how to do my job and how to ask questions. You've heard what he has to say. What do you think? It's 13 minutes before 10.
As 2024 makes headlines, EWN has some breaking news of our own. We have a brand new app and website. It's the digital home of the Eyewitness News team, and we're inviting you to experience it. Find all the things that keep you trusting EWN in one place. From breaking news,
trade unions have been warned to stay clear from using the deaths of 11 workers at the Impala Platinum mine,
to the 2024 national elections coverage.
Eyewitness News reporting live in Centurion.
The daily EWN TV bulletins, EWN traffic, business and sports reports, plus all the news, views, comments and analysis from South Africa and beyond. We've upgraded your EWN experience. It's sleeker, faster, better in every single way. Go to ewn.co.za or download the app from your app store.
Connect with Build SA, a real-time platform dedicated to South Africa's progress and unity. Engage in conversations aimed at fortifying the nation and the entire African continent. Tackle challenges collectively and illuminate the spirit of Africa. Visit buildsa.co.za. Build SA, the great South Africa. Together, we will build it.
The 29th of May is our moment. It's your moment. It's your election. Join the ENCA reporters as we crisscross our provinces, towns and suburbs and ask you, what is your election story? Will you make your mark? Only on ENCA, DSTV, Channel 403.
Man, the sun is fierce today. I mean, look at that thing. Big, bright ball of power. Only thing like it is my Go Solar solution. At just $1,399 a month, it's practically free. Sunbeatable. Biggest solar provider in the country. And fast. Speed of light. Installed my system in under 2 weeks. Sunbelievable. Sunbelievable. Bigger, faster, cheaper. Go solar. Here comes the sun. GoSolar.co.za.
This advert is paid for by the political party concerned.
The Democratic Alliance is on a mission to rescue South Africa. Together with the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa, we have a real chance to bring in a new government that works. We can turn things around, but we cannot do it without you. In this election, the stakes are simply too high. Every single vote is going to count. A strong DA can rescue South Africa. Join the rescue mission on the 29th of May. Vote DA.
This advert was paid for by the political party concerned.
With misinformation and disinformation around us all the time, where can we turn to for news and information that is not fake? Radio, of course, your number one trusted source of reliable and truthful news and information. For over 3 decades, we have been a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct, and we pride ourselves as a trusted source of information. Say no to false news and disinformation that circulates online. Radio, keeping it real and fighting fake since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters.
Do your staff arrive at work stressed out? Traffic jams, out-of-order robots, and bad driving are all contributors to a stressful commute, which doesn't make for a successful and productive day, right? So join Lula for a safe, reliable transport partner to ensure your people arrive better at work so they can do better at work. Visit lulaloop.co.za. Lula, move the people, move the world.
Your voice, your station, your open line. Walk the talk with Clement Manyatela on 702.
9 minutes before 10 o'clock. Chilidzi, here's your chance. Go ahead, brother.
Hi, Clement. Yeah, I think there are two possibilities out of today's judgment. One is that they allow him to run for the election. But if they don't allow him, we are facing similar incidents to the July 2021. And I hope, but it could only be limited to certain pockets. I'm just hoping that the security cluster is prepared to contain such.
Yeah.
But should they allow him to run, we are still going to face another court battle later, just after elections, because he will want to stand for elections, even though he's not likely to get the majority to be the president. But he might just want to test the system. If you allow him to stand, are you saying he didn't serve 2 terms?
Yeah, and he's known for testing the limits of this constitution,
Yes.
Let's see how it's going to transpire, Chilidzi. Thanks for your call. Jerry, you are in Senton. What do you think?
Yes, good morning, Clement. First time caller.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Are you still with Mr. Jabu Kumalo there?
Uhambile. He said I must not ask any more further questions. So.
Okay, Clement. Let me continue then. You know, Mr. Jabu Kumalo doesn't want to come out clean. He's beating about the bushes. He can't be a president, and we have another president, which is Jacob Zuma. He says Jacob Zuma is the face of the party. He's been having talks with the party, and he doesn't have proof of that because for days or weeks, perhaps, he's never showed himself to the meeting. Let him come clean. Let him come out clean because we don't have any more time left. We are going to vote. For example, if I want to vote for MK, which president or which individual that's leading the party that I'm going to vote for? Because I have to. Well, all right, he's talking about the face. The face means nothing because now they are still in not a very good understanding between the two of them. Not even the two of them. The party doesn't want him at all.
Yeah, Jerry in Senton, well, he claims he's still part of the party. He claims to have attended meetings. When? That's why he's sketchy about when the meetings happens. Because I know for a fact. I've checked first before I even asked him that question. Let's go to your WhatsApps.
Hey, good morning, Clement. Jabulani Kumalo. The guy is evasive, inexplicit. The guy is dodgy. Really? A leader of a party responding like that? Damn, William Pretoria.
Good morning, Clement. The MK party members must be grateful that this man, Khumalo, is not their leader. I think he's suffering from leadership bankruptcy and is aggrieved. But well, to be rude is one of his characteristics. That is why he's been expelled in an organization. Thank you very much. It's Chao Manyigi here.
Good morning, Primedia and team. Mr. Khumalo, I'm disappointed with this man. Simple questions that you're asking him, he's failing to answer. So, and I don't know if he is listening himself, what he's saying, because he's totally confused, complete. And how can you vote someone with a temper like that? He has a temper, so you can't vote with someone like that. He's totally confused, complete.
Clement, this Khumalo guy, this Jabulani Khumalo, he's a puppet. He allows Zuma to bully him. So now he's protecting Zuma and the MK parties. No, he knows very well that he's actually out of the league. So you can't argue with such people. So I'm glad that he's not the leader of the MK party. And another thing, I look at the MK party manifesto launch in Orlando Stadium. Oh, Clement, the chaotic that was there. I don't think that the MK party will survive. This is Bongenkosi. Thank you.
Really, you don't think it's going to survive? I think this was quite a strong show of force. They were demonstrating that we are not a regional party like you constantly think that we are. But let's wait and see. One thing we've also come to understand about elections is that people rocking up at stadiums and filling up your stadiums doesn't necessarily translate into votes. It doesn't mean you've got the guaranteed vote on the 29th of May. Equally so, people who are tweeting up a storm where you trend as a political party doesn't always translate into those people going to actually vote for you when they get to the polls.
Good morning, 702 and Clement. Well, Mr. Jabulani Khumalo is in big denial. He lives in his own world. He's leader, but he's not leader. Zuma is president, but it's your perception that he's president. Which is which? The man doesn't know that he's going to be out, that his party has been hijacked, that he has been used by Jacob Zuma. And yeah, he must just accept that he's out. And he must conduct himself better in these interviews if he thinks that he's going to be, or if he wants to aspire to higher leadership. He must be able to answer these hard questions. Thank you, Clement.
Hi, Clement. Good morning, my brother. Mr. Khumalo is fired and he can't accept it. That is why he's so dramatic towards you. The guy is no longer part of the MK and he can't accept it. That's what I could read from your conversation with him. Thanks, Mbuyiseni.
Well, thank you so much for your WhatsApp voice note. It's 2 minutes before 10 o'clock. After the news at 10 o'clock, we start the conversation with President Cyril Ramaphosa. If you want to watch it live, go to the Primedia Plus app. If you don't have it, get it quickly now. It's very quick. And you can follow the conversation via live video stream. I see that it looks like the president is just about to arrive. So get ready for that chat after the news at 10 o'clock.
Shane, do you have a sore throat? The Andalex range of lozenges offers two options. At the first signs of an irritated, scratchy throat, use Andalex lozenges for dual action soothing relief. But for a painful, inflamed throat, use Andalex C lozenges for triple action pain relief. Andalex, SA's #1 choice for a sore mouth and throat. Andalex lozenges are available at all leading pharmacies and supermarkets.
Just Andalex it. On the 2nd of May 2024, the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Kabelo Kwamanda, delivered his 2024 State of the City address, where he provided valuable information on the city's state, achievements, and plans to rebuild the city. Read the full speech on joburg.org.za and empower yourself with the knowledge that fosters informed citizenship and active participation in shaping our collective future. This message was brought to you by the City of Joburg, a world-class African city.
World Sports Betting puts the excitement of Vegas in the palm of your hand. Bet on thousands of markets daily or try your luck on hundreds of games and you could become an instant millionaire. Register today at wsb.co.za and get your first deposit matched up to a massive 20,000 Rand. World Sports Betting. Bet with the best. Licensed by Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. No person under the age of 18 permitted to gamble. NRGP toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008. Winners know when to stop.
This is Eyewitness News.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. President Cyril Ramaphosa says access to quality and decent healthcare should not depend on one's ability to pay for such services. Ramaphosa also says the current healthcare insurance situation in the country does not serve the poor and the middle class, and the NHI will be a lifeline for millions. Writing in his latest newsletter, Ramaphosa has reflected on the National Health Insurance Act, which he signed into law amid much fanfare last week. Babalon Denze takes a look.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has tried to dismiss the notion that private healthcare is funded completely independent from government. He says this couldn't be further from the truth. Ramaphosa says the training of doctors, nurses, and other healthcare personnel that work in both the public and private sectors is subsidized by the state. He says as an employer, the state also pays billions of rands annually in subsidies for employees who are members of the various public sector medical aid schemes. On affordability and access, Ramaphosa says this should not depend on whether a person can afford to pay. Babalon Denze, Eyewitness News.
The president has joined world leaders in conveying condolences to the people of Iran following the death of President Ibrahim Raisi. Raisi, along with other government officials, died in a helicopter crash after it landed on a mountainous area yesterday. Ramaphosa says this tragedy has claimed the life of a remarkable leader. Presidency spokesperson Vincent Magwenya.
President Ramaphosa's thoughts are with the families of the late president and foreign minister, as well as the relatives of the personnel and aircrew who perished.
Remember to tune in to the Clement Matamela Show for a wide-ranging interview with the president at this hour. In other news, Rise Mzansi has assured South Africans that fighting crime and corruption will be among its top priorities as it makes a play for power in the upcoming general elections. Party leader Songezo Zibi made this commitment during the party's final rally at the Ramsach Stadium in Johannesburg yesterday. Alfa Ramushwana was there.
South Africans were recently taken aback by the gruesome murder of 5-year-old Ditebogo Palane, who was shot outside his home in Soshanguve 2 weeks ago during a hijacking. Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi believes his party is capable of curbing the scourge of lawlessness.
We will reduce the murder rate in 3 years. The experts tell us this is absolutely doable.
Stats have shown that over 7,000 people were murdered in the last quarter of 2023. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News, Johannesburg.
The Defence Department has confirmed that it will not pay the legal costs for former National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula's upcoming corruption trial. Mapisa-Nqakula was charged with 12 counts of corruption and money laundering last month. She's accused of receiving kickbacks related to tenders awarded by the department during her tenure as the defense minister. She later approached the department to provide her with legal representation for when the matter goes to trial. Current Defense Minister Thandi Modise briefed the media on the outcome of Mapisa-Nqakula's request.
The matter has received attention from ourselves. We then looked at the provisions in the law, whether or not we can accede to such a request. And we found that in terms of Section 6.2 of the State Legal Representation Policy, that we cannot help the former minister. And therefore, we will not be doing so.
And the head of the African Union Commission, Musa Mahamat, has condemned an attempted coup in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yesterday, the RC military said it had foiled a coup bid near the offices of President Felix Tshisekedi in the capital Kinshasa involving foreigners and Congolese. According to reports, shots were heard near the venue which houses the president's offices at the time of a coup attempt. Gold is trading at $2,437.44 an ounce. The rand is at 18.14 to the dollar, 23.05 to the pound, 19.74 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $81.62 a barrel. A fine Monday in store for Gauteng today. The temperatures will peak at highs between 25 and 26 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa says access to quality and decent health care should not depend on one's ability to pay for such services.
Eyewitness News, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, log on to ewn.co.za or the new EWN app. Everything you need to know about elections 2024 on 702. Let's walk the talk.
You're with Clement Magnatella on 702.
Live, streaming countrywide.
On the Primedia Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7.
And 106 FM.
Five minutes after 10 o'clock, Dumelang, welcome to this special broadcast live on 702, on Cape Talk, on 947 and KFM. My name is Clement Magnatella. I host the Clement Magnatella Show on 702, and I'm with my colleague here, EWN Politics Editor, Tsidi Madia.
That's right. Good morning. My name is Tsidi Madia, Associate Editor for Eyewitness News. So in a few days' time, the country takes to the polls, and while there's 50 plus political parties that are vying for power, it is historic for many reasons. You've got independent candidates, you've got so many parties, but come what may, the story of these elections will definitely be about the ANC, a former liberation movement and governing party, and what happens to it will probably be what we take away from the May 29th polls. In just 9 days' time, the ANC will face its most difficult poll since the advent of democracy, Clement.
And that is why today we are hosting the president of the ANC, President Cyril Ramaphosa, across all Primedia platforms. Not only are we live on all of our radio stations, we are also streaming this interview live on our Primedia Plus app. So we'll give you an opportunity as well to ask the president your burning questions. So you can call us on 011-883-0702, regardless of which platform you're listening on, or you can send us your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. All right, let's get straight into it. Mr. President, welcome to Primedia House.
Well, good to be here, Clement and Tsidi. It's wonderful to be questioning you about a whole lot of things.
Don't look so scared.
You are on the other side. Yeah, no, we really appreciate your time, Mr. President. We know how busy you are, and especially now with the campaign really getting even more hectic. I want us to start off with the NHI. I want us to kick off with that bill that you signed in Parliament. Not in Parliament.
At the Union Building.
The Union Building.
The seat of government.
At the seat of government last week, Wednesday. It was passed by the National Assembly in around December, and it appears to me, and tell me if I'm wrong here, signing it several days before elections was probably a political move. Why did you wait since December to only sign it last week?
When the president is presented with a bill from the National Assembly or from Parliament, he has to apply his mind, and he has to also send it for verification, for scrutiny by the presidency staff and internal people, legal and otherwise. And that whole process is not a short process. So I don't receive a bill from Parliament and then sign it immediately thereafter, because I have a number of options. One of those is to send it back and say, no, you've skipped this and that and so forth. So Once I had done that, I then signed it. Now, by the way, there are quite a number of other bills that I'm going to be signing in the next few days or so, because they've been going through a lot of processes. You might recall that Parliament went through a process of approving a number of bills in the recent period, in the past 6 months. And so that process then gets underway in the presidency. And this is not an election ploy, by the way. The NHI has been in the making for 81 years. 81 years. In 1943, the African claims said there should be universal health coverage. And in 1955, when the Freedom Charter was drafted, the same was said. And the United Nations has said in one of their Sustainable Development Goals that there needs to be universal health coverage. So we are implementing what has been in the making for many, many, many generations.
I think while the idea of universal healthcare is important and it's a just cause, there are questions about the timing. I think Clement has asked you about it. Yes, many months in the making, but it's also on the eve of an election.
Mm-hmm.
The opposition are saying it. South Africans are skeptical. What do you then say? In part because ANC leaders are also using this to campaign. We've heard Gauteng's premier candidate pretty much saying to supporters, tomorrow you can walk into any hospital. You will not die.
Yes.
And that suggests literally that tomorrow they can go to any hospital.
Well, the implementation of the NHI is a process. It's going to be phased. It's going to take a while to finally bed down exactly what the national health insurance will be all about. We needed to start somewhere. And this is where we have started, to implement what our forebears said should happen. So we implemented it. Now, it's not an election ploy. I mean, really, people are naive to think that people will now throng to the polls because there's NHI. There are many things that people give consideration to. Many, many things indeed. And, being able to go to a hospital or to a doctor is not one of those. But in any event, it is here. It is law now. I've signed it into law, and the implementation process commences.
But to be fair, Mr. President, I mean, as soon as you signed it on Wednesday, you didn't waste time. When you were in KZN, you spoke about the NHI and having been signed and the kind of difference it's going to make. I would like you to clarify to our listeners this morning, because there's an impression out there that after elections, we are going to immediately start seeing the full implementation of NHI. Can you clarify to our listeners that this is a phased approach that may take about 6, and if you're going to have court challenges, it could be even more?
Yeah. No, actually, to clarify it to your listeners clearly, I mean, the implementation of the NHI is going to commence. It's going to take time. It's going to be phased. Even the law itself does anticipate that and does speak to that when the NHI is fully implemented, certain things will happen. So the NHI implementation process is going to be phased. It's going to be a process. And you might want to recall that we started a few years ago to do test drives, if you like, of the NHI implementation. And a number of clinics, a number of hospitals, more clinics, I think, were chosen to be the test drive centers for the NHI. So this has been going on, and talking about it is actually saying one of the things that we have fulfilled this term of government is that we've signed the NHI. Like, for instance, we fulfilled the implementation of the national minimum wage during this season. And I've been talking about that. These are things that have been done. We have succeeded in bringing down the incidence of load shedding quite drastically in this term of government. So as a politician, I will talk about that. It is only those who are possibly against the NHI who will shout out. But the majority of people who are for the NHI, who see that the NHI is going to be of benefit, like our forebears in 1943, who foresaw that in 1955, will be applauding and saying, yes, finally, we have the NHI, and it's been done in this session or in this term of government. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. People should now be saying, how will the NHI be implemented? That's what we should now be focusing on. And what did we learn from the test drive, if you like, once again, like for the real term, test-driven process? What did we learn from it? What can we improve? Are we going to improve our healthcare through NHI? That should be what the debate should be all about.
But at the same time, Mr. President, you have healthcare practitioners who are speaking out of concern. You've got technocrats who are also quite concerned about the way that it's moving around NHI. And then you have business that feels betrayed and left behind. Your response to those pockets who say, we want to come on board, we want to help.
Nothing that we do always satisfies everyone. I think that should be the starting point. Everything that anyone does, you'll find that there are people who agree with it, there are people who don't agree with it. Even in my own party, there are often decisions that are fully supported and other people will feel differently. So I live with that as a politician and as a president. I know that nearly every law that we pass, there will always be those who feel it should not have been passed. But we cannot hold back. We cannot hold back giving our people universal health coverage like the United Nations has said. Because, yes, there are people who say, no, but you should have put this I here and dotted this T here and so forth. You cannot hold back. The whole process, it has to continue. And their concerns, yes, can be addressed as we move on, because even the NHS in the UK, when it was introduced, it was not perfect. It was not perfect, and they've kept on revamping it and improving it as they have gone on. But after the war in 1945, they had to introduce the NHS, and it has been reviewed over time. And similarly, like us, we cannot stop, the progress of health coverage history, because yes, this one has a problem with that, this one has a problem with that. The majority of people do. And by the way, the NHI was voted by the elected representatives of the people of South Africa who are in parliament. And they, in their majority, voted for it. And that is how we pass laws. And when we pass laws, we take the representations of people into account, and thereafter the representatives duly elected are the ones who then decide on it.
I want to take you very quickly a step backwards as well. Clement asked you about explaining this to our listeners.
Yes.
I want to take it a step back and ask you to speak of the deficit that continues to exist between government and the people you serve. Because part of the difficulty around the NHI is the belief that you lead a government that is actually capable of delivering this, rightfully so, and we won't hear of corruption. I'll always take you back to a conversation I had with you in 2020 where I questioned about the possibility of COVID corruption. You said it wouldn't happen. We had a conversation the following year following widespread looting and PPE corruption. What says you now in 2024?
Well, you see, we've learned a lot of lessons over time, and particularly also about dealing with incidents of corruption. And I'm the first to concede that when we came to the PPEs, and personal protection equipment, we made a mistake. We allowed everyone in the country to be a provider, a supplier, and a procurer. And yet with the vaccines, we centralized everything. Because we were facing a national calamity, we should have done that with the PPEs as well, because then we would have reduced the incidence of corruption. We made a mistake. I will concede that. But when it came to vaccines, we centralized everything, and there was just literally no corruption, or if at all, it was very isolated. So this time round, and we've learned lessons. We've learned lessons when we instituted the SRD, the 350, if you like, for lack of the right word now. We had incidents of corruption of civil servants who registered, who are employed by the civil service, who registered and also got the 350. And we immediately clamped down on that. And we now have a grant system that is working well. Many other things do work well, and people lose focus on that. For instance, the monthly pensions that we pay to our old people, they work very well. The child grants, they work extremely well.
Except sometimes there are glitches.
There are glitches. As everything in life will always have glitches, but they do work well. And incidents of corruption is something that you curb as you learn. You learn on the job, as it were, and as you learn, you then close the loopholes, because people who want to steal will always find loopholes, and that is when, as they happen, you close those loopholes.
As we wrap up on the NHI, Mr. President, how is it going to be funded? I know the Health Department has previously said it expects to raise about an additional 200 billion rand or so for NHI with taxes. But can South Africans be taxed higher than they are now with all the financial pressure under them? I mean, there's so many South Africans who, for lack of a better phrase, are double taxed. They feel, government, you fail to provide reliable reliable security, so they get private security. You fail to provide quality education, they take their kids to private schools. They feel you fail to provide public health, that's why there's private hospitals and private doctors. So, one, how is it going to be funded? And two, is this an admission through the NHI as government that you actually admit that you failed in managing and offering quality public health care in the public hospitals? That's why now you want to piggyback on the private sector.
Clement, the people who said there should be universal coverage in 1943 were not mad. And the people who said in 1955 there should be universal health coverage were also not mad. And the United Nations, combining all countries in the world who said that we should have sustainable development goals and we should have universal coverage, were also not mad. Now, this is a broad universal objective, which we are now trying to meet. And in meeting it, we are going to improve our healthcare. If we ever wanted ways of improving our healthcare, this is one of those. And people always focus on some few failing hospitals where there are weaknesses. There are many hospitals in our country that are doing well. And I know that bad news travels fast, and bad news almost always is propagated by you in the media as proving the fact that things are falling apart. But they are not. Our healthcare system now supports 62 million people. And we have a fragmented health system right now. We have a healthcare system for the rich, for people who are very rich. But what's worse is that we also subsidize them. In my newsletter this morning, I've written about it, that we also sacrifice 37 billion rand for those who are on private health care. And we give them rebates. This is money that the state forgoes, that it should be taxing people on. And the system was configured in that way. And now we are correcting that system. And what is worse is that people who are on private health care are always seeing their costs going up continuously. And when they run out of their benefits, they run to the public health care system.
If the public healthcare system works so well, Mr. President, why are you and your cabinet ministers not using it as many as... Because I know there are a few that say they will go to a public hospital.
I don't think that is a measure to even judge. Quite a number of my colleagues, and I haven't been in hospital for a while, quite a number of my colleagues go to Steve Biko Hospital, which is in Pretoria.
Which ones? I can count two of the ministers who have publicly
said... No, but that is not even a measure. We are talking here about the public. I mean, it's like saying, there are people who send children to their private schools. That is the choice they have. But in the end, once we have universal coverage, yes, they will even be able to be able to go to those private hospitals, but it will now be under the NHI. It will be under a national health insurance. So that is not really a measure to say, this is favoring this one and that one and that one. The real issue here is that there are people who are opposed to universal health care. And we are saying universal health care is going to support all South Africans, including the poor, and including the rich as well, because the rich are also finding it difficult to continue funding their own medical costs. I mean, you ask them. I once asked my dentist, and he said, President, I am struggling because myself and my family now have to pay a lot of money, and now we are going to resort to the public health care, the dentist. So in the end, private health care in South Africa has become so expensive. And if, Clement and CD, if it was not for the subsidies that we give people, it would not be sustainable.
Are we going to get higher taxes?
Well, in the end, I mean, we've got to find a way of funding NHI, and that is still to be determined. And that is why NHI is going to be implemented on a phased basis. Now, people want to use scare tactics and say, yes, they are now going to tax us higher and higher and so forth. And we are saying we should embrace this, all of us, and make sure that the NHI is implemented. I was pleased to see that even some voices in business are saying we want to work with government to make sure that the NHI succeeds.
All right, we've got some breaking news coming through. It's 25 minutes after 10 o'clock. You're listening to this special broadcast on 702 Cape Talk, 947 and KFM. We're in conversation with ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Eyewitness News. Breaking news.
The Constitutional Court has ruled that former President Jacob Zuma cannot stand as a candidate in next week's elections. The Electoral Commission disqualified Zuma's candidature submitted by the MK party to contest the elections because of his 15-month prison sentence for contempt in 2021. The Electoral Court overturned the IEC's decision, and the Commission then turned to the Constitutional Court with an urgent appeal bid, which has now made its ruling. We'll have more on this breaking news story in our next bulletins.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sfiso. Mr. President, I actually just want to pick up from right there where you just heard the breaking news. The Constitutional Court has finally ruled on this particular matter about your predecessor and whether or not he can make a turn to return to Parliament. Let's first speak about your reaction to the news.
Well, the Constitutional Court has ruled. And as I've often said, that's the highest court in the land. And we've given the judiciary the right to arbitrate disputes amongst us in terms of our constitution. So they have come out with a ruling, and I note that ruling, and that is what it is.
Noting the ruling is what you actually did in December. I, again, go back to conversations you had with journalists ahead of the formal launch of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party. I asked you, former presidents are saying A, B, C, D, E. You said you'd note it. And look at where it's led to the ANC and where you are today. Should you have not dealt with that matter, particularly around former President Jacob Zuma, differently? Are there any regrets about that? We will not comment. Suddenly to commenting. Suddenly there is a question of suspension. Should this matter not have been handled differently by the ANC?
Because it was already clear in December when he publicly spoke that he violated the ANC constitution,
Yes.
and yet as leaders of the party, you waited until much later to start considering action against him.
Are you saying should we not have acted as the ANC?
No,
or as government?
ANC.
No, obviously as the ANC.
Oh, no. As the ANC, I mean, obviously we have to follow the prescripts of our constitution. And the prescripts of our constitution that anybody who is a member must be given due process. There must be due process, and they must go through the various processes of hearings and all that, and representation. And so that is what we followed. So we followed our constitution to the letter, and we could not have done it any other way.
If I was an ANC member, I'd actually say, as Clement just pointed out, the constitution is quite clear. It took a really, really long time for the NEC to decide to actually start relying on its constitution. You went from, we will not comment on this, we will not discuss this,
Yes.
to having random remarks being made in public engagements.
Yes.
And that's what the clumsiness in how this was being handled actually took place, is in different leaders, in your Secretary General defending the actions of the ANC over the years in the name of an individual. It was those mishaps before the ANC remembered it's got a constitution and it's quite clear about what the violations are. So it's all good and well for you today to speak about the constitution and what you've done, but you looked at the constitution many months down the road.
Gee, I wish you could be an ANC member and insist on
I'd rather not.
following the constitution. My God, you're so good at it. No. No. In the end, I mean, we followed the constitution and we took the decisions that we took at the time. And some decisions, sometimes you'll find that maybe you should have taken a different decision. You should have done things incorrectly. But it is what it is. We took the decision to put him through a disciplinary process. And that is what we have done. And what we should really be found guilty for is to follow our constitution. And that I will concede that, yes, we are guilty for having followed the terms of our constitution.
You're guilty for having started late. Gwede Mantashe was on the show a couple of months ago. I asked him a similar question and he said, we don't want to be disrupted by somebody else. We are focusing on elections. And I said, but you can chew and walk at the same time. Who says when you are taking action against a leader who has clearly violated the constitution, that somehow takes you off campaigning?
Gee, Clement and CD, I mean, I wish you could be ANC members because you are really sticklers for the constitution.
Just last
we
question
would have real constitutionalists in the ANC with you. But we took the decision that we took. And as I said, some decisions should have been taken earlier, some should have been taken later, but in the end, we have taken the decision.
This is a very significant ruling coming out of the Constitutional Court. I saw the City Press reporting this weekend that there are concerns of threats of violence. There was a threat analysis that was compiled by the police, crime intelligence, SANDF, that state security agency, that there may be violence if certain parties or certain candidates are barred from contesting. How concerned are you about this particular ruling somehow instigating some kind of violence? I'm sure you've heard what the MK party members have been saying.
I'm not concerned about this instigating violence. President Jacob Zuma should be the one person who should respect the rule of law. We have rule of law in South Africa that governs us. Once a constitutional court has decided that is it. And I mean, should there be any threat of violence, our security forces are ready to deal with that. And we will not even mince our words when it comes to something like that.
We are going to move on, but I've got just one last quick one.
Indeed.
And it goes back to what I asked earlier about the decisions and when you make the decisions. Society, by and large, watching the development, the formation even, the idea that a former president of the ANC could go out and urge people to vote against the ANC, will say the ANC bent over backwards for many years. It undermined the very tenets of democracy that it put in place in order to protect this individual. It's not a question of what happened recently. It's a question of the many years of his leadership. It's a question of even the politicization of what happened in 2021, even managing what happens to him at every turn. The ANC has considered the individual at the cost of the republic. What says you to the public that's watching saying, actually, you deserve everything that you're getting as the ANC because you engineered the path towards this?
Well, TD, the ANC has seen a number of political parties springing up from people or by people who left the ANC. And it's not anything new. We've had many parties that were formed by a number of people. So, I mean, when you say we deserve this, I don't think that's an appropriate description, because in the end, people do what they want to do. And when they leave the party, recently we had a Secretary General who was expelled from the party, and he formed his own party. And now we've had a former president who has, before he was even through the process of a disciplinary process, gone to form his own party. So in the end, people choose what they want, but the ANC goes on. And we, in many, many ways, we even becoming stronger and stronger as people have left our family. And they think that by leaving our family, we're going to be weakened, we're going to lose elections. And they are in for a surprise because the members of the ANC family and its supporters are determined to ensure that the ANC continues leading this country.
So your first term, Mr. President, is coming to an end.
Yes.
You may or may not return, depending on what happens after the 29th of May.
I will return.
You're confident you will return?
Yes, I will.
Now, when you started this term, you promised a new dawn. You promised to tackle corruption. We've seen it very much so and brazen during your presidency. You've promised to tackle the issue of sluggish economic growth. I mean, the economy is not moving at all, which then impacts another promise you made around unemployment. Over 8 million people are unemployed, and I think unemployment among young people is sitting at about 45%. That is not sustainable. When people look at the new dawn you promised and they look at the realities today, that may just be a pipe dream. Was it a pipe dream? What has your new dawn really brought for this country?
Well, what we sought out to do when we got into office in this 6th term is to move South Africa ahead. And as we sought to do so, a number of headwinds then started, in a way detracting us from our march forward. We had state capture to deal with, and state capture which, by the way, we have stopped. State capture was an overriding process which had weakened state institutions, including the criminal justice institutions. It had also weakened our state-owned enterprises in ways that really debilitated, and Eskom and Transnet and PRASA are really good examples of all that. So state capture was one of the key headwinds. The second one was COVID. But then we had to deal with COVID, which descended on our country and indeed the world soon after the 6th administration started. And then we had the floods. Then we had the unrest in July 2021. And but the other one that I mentioned, which people may want to pay less attention on, is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence during my term really reared its head to a point where we had to heed the cries of the women of this country and set up or came up with a national strategic plan, which we're implementing and pouring quite a lot of money into. And then, of course, unemployment also has been going up. Because of a weak economy, because many of these events really weakened the economy. During COVID, we lost 2 million jobs, and that really took our economy to the doldrums. It's now gone back to pre-COVID levels. Had we not had COVID, and had we not had all these calamities, it is thought that our economy would have grown by about 3%, which would have been admirably higher than what we have had over quite a number of years. And now, we now are looking at the prospects, or better still before I go into that. And then we had many other challenges. Challenges, yes, of corruption. Corruption raised its ugly head, particularly during the COVID period, and it was there for everyone to see. But the question should be, have we done anything to deal with all these challenges? And my answer is yes. We have done a lot of things during this term of government to deal with all the given challenges that faced us. For instance, state capture. We stopped state capture. One of those institutions that was really captured was the SARS. We repositioned SARS. We expelled the CEO of SARS, and we repositioned it. And today, it is now returning to its glory days of being a really efficient tax collector amongst some of the best in the world. And the NPA, which was also captured, we've restored it to a very good, healthy state, and it's really getting on with dealing with cases of corruption. And and even other commentators, they say that, Corruption Watch, which is an organization that is a real hawk on corruption, they've said that during this term, they have seen incidents of corruption going down. What did we do with the PPE corruption? We set up a system where we got government to work together. We set up the fusion system entity that is now looking at everything from all angles that has to do with corruption. What have we done with our state-owned enterprises? We are revamping them. Eskom, we are restructuring Eskom so that it can deliver, energy to our people in a better way. We've really opened up the energy sector for independent players so that they can invest. Already 170 billion rand has been invested in renewable energy. And this has happened during this term. What we've sought to do is to really reposition our country for growth. We were, in a way, diverted and detracted from what we wanted to achieve by all these challenges that we face. Gender-based violence, we've strengthened the laws to actually make sure that the victims of gender-based violence are properly treated in our country. So all in all, the question should be asked, faced with all these challenges, did you do anything? And my answer is yes. And right now, there are economists who are saying South Africa is now becoming more and more bullish. And with our coming budget surplus, they're saying we're becoming more and more bullish. The macroeconomic environment, have we managed it well? Yes, we have managed it well. Because in the end, that is what determines the lives of our people. Are we dealing with debt? Yes, we are dealing with debt, and we are going to see debt beginning to taper down. So all these overarching challenges we've had to tackle. And believe you me, even the issue of unemployment. We lost 2 million jobs. We've regained most of those jobs. And we haven't had a situation in South Africa where almost 2 million, more than 1 million, let me just bring it down, more than 1 million jobs were created in a period of, say, 3 years. And we've had that. What are we doing with the employment of young people? We've set up a number of initiatives, many initiatives that can bring in young people. Mm-hmm. And a number of them are, we set up the Presidential Employment Stimulus, which brought in 1.7 million people, young people, middle-aged people, and slightly older people, into a variety of functions. Yes, those were opportunities, but they were opportunities that lasted a year and more. And that, in effect, means that a lot has been done in the past 5 years.
There's a lot that you've said there, Mr. President. I'd really like to pick at many of those things.
Yes.
But I'm going to try to stick to one for now, because I do realize that time is ticking away quite furiously.
Oh, yes.
When you came in, you made a ton of promises, but part of what you've done over the years is create. You spoke now about the Presidential Youth Stimulus Program. You've had an infrastructure program within the presidency. You've had, I think you had a corruption. It was a corruption entity that you brought into
advisory,
the presidency.
Yes,
advisory. You've had a lot of these that you've launched within the presidency, all of which suggest that you don't trust the government that works with you, that you don't trust the government that serves alongside you, works with you to serve the nation. Some argue that it actually shows a lack of trust in statecraft on your part, and they blame it on how you learned to become president, who you shadowed as deputy president. But ultimately, there is a question where you don't seem to trust them. You've created parallel structures and to some disregard, disempowered some of the DGs and some of the departments.
Okay. You know, the governing party took a decision that we need a strong center. And the presidency is the center of government. And by so saying, we said we are going to initiate a number of interventions that are meant to benefit the people of South Africa. And you say in the course we have weakened institutions. We have strengthened institutions. We've strengthened the NPA. We've strengthened SARS. We're strengthening also a number of even entities like ESCOM. We're strengthening them and saying the board must run all these. And it's not a lack of trust in the government. It's actually the government through the presidency leading. But more importantly, I introduced the district development model. The district development model means that we are bringing an intergovernmental sort of involvement in government so that all government departments should work together. And it is the presidency that is the glue that holds all together and that enables them to work together. And believe you me, when it comes to intergovernmental working together, the presidency is the president is the one that has the authority and the wherewithal to pull all these together and also to empower them. And I have empowered my ministers, I have empowered various departments in the government to do their work. And that is why we need a strong presidency that is going to take initiatives and drive development. You know, when people talk about government, they always talk about the president. They often don't talk about this one and that one. They say, the president, you should do this wherever I go.
Oh, the buck stops with you.
The buck stops with me, and therefore then I must be that buck that enables things to happen.
But you must also understand statecraft. But hold on.
But I do understand statecraft.
But hold on. We do have voice notes coming in 0727021702 for your views. And I suppose to put your questions to the president as well. Clem?
Let's start with these two WhatsApp voice notes. Well, hold on, Abel, Mr. President, can you just please put on your...
I don't have my...
Do you not? Okay.
No, they
Abel
took them away.
Abel.
I mean, really. I mean,
they took them away.
They took them away from
We'll
me.
arrange that for you. Okay, the president now has the headphones. Let's listen to the WhatsApps.
Hi, Mr. President. This is Mwezi. I just want to know, where do we start and what's a realistic path towards solving our crippling youth unemployment rate? And what are your plans to grow our economy?
Clement, I want to ask the president, him to reflect on Phala. Why did he not take the report on review so that he could clear him over the fact that he has questionable ethics on the Phala matter? He must reflect on that. The second question is, Clement, why is he keep on borrowing so much? Since he came in the first term, from 64 to 75%, that's where the GDP is. How does he spend to repay this money? Or you won't expect my children to pay it? Costas.
Thank you very much, Kustas. Thank you for the other WhatsApp as well, Mr. President. Plans around creating a strong economy and dealing with the issue of unemployment.
I had that.
And Kustas, yes, around the reflections on Phala.
Yes. On youth employment, I didn't get his name. We have gone on to implement a number of interventions. We brought in 800,000 young people into being assistants at schools, which has really been a boon for the schools and for education in our country. And we've set up a website which is called SA Youth Mobi, where young people flight their own CVs, and from that employers are able to see which young people they can employ. And we've been receiving really good reports from that a number of young people are able to get jobs. But at the same time, we've also set up the Youth Employment Service, where we've brought in a number of employers to bring in young people and to employ them. And that is growing. I initially thought it would be up to 1 million, but it has not reached those levels, but it continues to grow. with the participation of a number of employers who are keen to bring in young people, and that is a focus on youth unemployment.
Yeah.
We've also started a process of training young people. The National Youth Service is one other important initiative that brings in young people who are trained by a number of departments in government, for instance, by the Defense Force and many others, by the Environmental Affairs and all that. So all these initiatives are aimed at creating jobs. In the end, jobs have to be created. The majority of our jobs are created by the private sector. What have we done in this term of office? We've embarked on a number of reforms that are going to enable investors to come to our country and invest. That is why today some economists are saying South Africa is looking more bullish. Bullish in the sense that, even from buying our bonds is beginning to turn the tide, and also investing. And that is precisely what we've set out to do, to make South Africa a conducive environment for employment. And the next question asked about Phala issue. We've dealt with Phala, and the various agencies have dealt with it, and they have come up with their own conclusions. And I said right from the beginning, I'm not even going to interfere. I'm not even going to take any move. They will, in the end, determine exactly what the situation is. So that will be my answer on that. And he says, well, I should have taken it on review or whatever. And there have been many court processes and various investigations. And I think that it should suffice. And on the issue of the debt, he also raises the issue of the debt and saying that we've just been seeing debt going up and increasing. And he is right. Our debt servicing costs are now equal to what we spend on education and health. And that is something that, we want to reverse. We want to reverse that, and we're managing our debt as tightly as we possibly can. And we're not even saying that, future generations should pay for the debt. We want to reduce the debt, and the initiatives that we are going to take are going to lead to that. Now, debt reduction, in the end, really revolves around our revenue. When our revenue is high, then we have less reason to go and raise debt. The needs of our people keep rising. They keep rising in health, in education, everything keeps going up, and we have to meet that. We have to fund that. And we don't go and borrow money just because we want to borrow money. It's because there is a deficit between our revenue collection as well as our expenditure. And you have got to meet that. Much as we lower our expenditure as much as we possibly can and almost cut to the bone, we still have a deficit. And that deficit needs to be funded. And the only way we can fund it is to get debt. But we also want to manage the debt that we incur.
Yeah, I'm going to go to another call in a moment, but just a follow-up on your response on Phala. The Sudanese businessman said he had wanted a refund at some point because he paid the money, but he didn't have the buffaloes delivered. Has your farm paid him back that money?
Well, we because he has a claim. He has a clear claim, and it's a claim that needs to be met, and we are in the process of dealing with that claim.
By dealing with it, you mean repaying the money?
Oh, yes, we have to.
Okay. You nearly resigned because of the scandal, Mr. President. What changed your mind?
Did I really?
I spoke to two of your best friends on the show who said they managed to convince you.
And also, never mind that, your Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, again, in public said they stopped you from resigning.
Really?
One is to ask not only what changed your mind, but how do you expect the electorate to trust that as you're asking for them to vote for the ANC with you as the presidential candidate?
Yes.
They must trust that you'll see to 5 years, that you will stick around and not quiet quit or not quit on us as a nation, but actually be up for serving till the end of your term if you're voted back into power.
I will be voted back into power, CD, and many may not like this, but it's going to happen. And I will serve my term. And serve is the operative word, serving the people of South Africa. with the best that I can give in the remaining years of my life. I'm 72 this year, and I will be prepared, willing, and able to serve the people of South Africa, because there's much that needs to be done to improve their lives.
What made you change your mind?
Though, in December?
No, did I change my mind?
It was October.
So you never wanted to resign in December?
No, I don't know anything about that.
So Fikile Mbalula was lying?
I can never say Fikile Mbalula was lying. You should ask him.
So your two best friends who said they've been on the call with you throughout.
Best friends?
Yes.
I wonder who they are.
Franz Baleni,
yeah.
James Motlati.
Are
those not your friends?
Were they on the show?
On this show, yeah.
Well, I should go and ask them.
Why can't you admit that you actually wanted to quit on us, Mr. President? Was it so hard to say, I did have a moment where that independent panel report made it difficult for you to stick around, and you felt that actually it's easier to go, and there are people who came out saying they stopped you?
You would like a headline that's...
No, I don't like a headline. I'd like some honesty.
No.
I'd like you to take us into your confidence.
No, I do take people into my confidence. That is not the case.
So you didn't. Okay. Steve, you're calling us from Centurion. Just quickly, what's your question for the President?
Thanks, Clement. Mr. President, good morning. Mr. President, the good work that you are doing as ANC is shadowed by the dirty people that we appoint on the ground. It's like we only appoint people based on their popularity, especially the council, because those are the reflection of the ANC. And it's like there's no plan to deal with that, Mr. President. Because every time, if you can check Sowetan today about this guy, the councillor, they say the councillor stops us because he wants bribes. So those people, when they come, they say ANC councillors. We know, Mr. President, we know what ANC did to this country. Us who grew up, during apartheid, we know that the good work that ANC did. But those people on the ground, and there's no accountability, President.
Okay. Steve in Centurion, thank you so much. Steve talks about the people you appoint, Mr. President, which links to the question I have as well for you around the people you appoint into cabinet. I've often asked myself, what comes first to you? Is it the ANC or is it the country? And I'm asking this because sometimes it appears, at least to me, that you are so concerned with the unity of your organization and your political survival more than anything else, at the detriment of this country. And what I mean by that is, you once appointed a high-level review panel. Sidney Mufamadi, who's your security advisor, now led it. He comes back to you and he says, Arthur Fraser and David Mahlobo are very much implicated in the destruction of the State Security Agency. Even you at the State Capture Commission, you said these people, under their leadership, the State Security Agency was compromised and operated under the milieu of state capture. And that's a quote from you. So what baffles me is, how is it then that you are able to appoint such people? Arthur Fraser, you made him Correctional Services Commissioner, even after what you knew about the high-level review panel. David Mahlobo, you appoint him to your cabinet, even after the high-level review panel has told you these people are problematic characters. So where's the commitment to have ethical people who are serious about pushing your ethical agenda when you still appoint such problematic people into cabinet and critical posts?
Just to answer Steve about appointing people not because of their popularity, and Steve is absolutely right. Part of the renewal process in our party is that we now need to appoint people because of their capabilities, what they are capable of doing, and we examine them. And that is why during this process of appointing representatives who will go to parliament and to provincial legislatures, we've gone through interview processes to examine precisely the capability of people that will represent the ANC there. And similarly, when I appoint, for instance, ministers, that's what I look at. I don't look at the party's interests, I look at the national interests. I look at people who are capable of performing their task. For who? Not for the ANC, but for the people of South Africa. And yes, there will be some bad apples now and again, and which people usually point at. They say, in this bag, there are 100 apples, and 10 of them are bad apples. And that is what needs to be dealt with. We don't just discard the whole bag and say the whole bag is full of rotten apples. we discard those and deal with those that are really bad apples. And that's the approach that we really should take. And in dealing with that, we've got to do it on an evidence-based process. And investigations are ongoing with regard to state capture and what happened in the State Security Agency and all that. And because all that is underway, we await all that. And we say, once that has been concluded and people have been named and fingered and all that, with the relative or the applicable details, then we will take action.
But that's not enough, Mr. President. You said you're coming with a new wave, with a new dawn. If you are going to spend resources and appoint a team to go and investigate the State Security Agency, and the report comes and says these are the bad apples, it's not enough to say we're waiting for evidence. If there's legal considerations, there's ethical considerations. And my understanding of your campaign was you don't just focus on legal considerations and what the evidence says. You've got ethical considerations. So if you are serious about ethics, you don't take someone that the very same panel you have structured and says to you, these people are bad apples. They are the reason the State Security Agency is like this. And you think, oh, perfect. He deserves to be Correctional Services Commissioner. He deserves to be Deputy President. That to me suggests you're not serious about having ethical leaders in positions.
Well, we are serious about having ethical leaders and accountability, which has been raised over and over again, also including by the Auditor General, who I listened to very, very carefully. As she goes through her reports, she says, President, accountability and consequence management should be the order of the day. And that's precisely how we are going to be proceeding forward. And what has happened in the past is going to inform how we deal with what should happen in the future. And that's precisely what I would like to say to our people.
Speaking of ethical leadership, every other week, your deputy is in the news. Your thoughts when you're reading news about your deputy Paul Mashatile, be it about salacious women, is it about salacious businessmen? Those connections are in the news week on week. When you look at that, and yes, I recognize that you don't control him being deputy president of the ANC. That is up to the party. However, one has to ask you if you have confidence, if you will endorse him as somebody who steps up and possibly becomes head of state, as Paul Mashatile with Cyril Ramaphosa. Would you endorse your deputy to be in charge of the country?
My deputy has been elected by the ANC conference of almost 5,000 people. And that is something that we need to recognize. And,
yes, we do.
And respect the decision that was taken by the people who elected, all of us, because they demonstrated confidence in our ability. And the party in dealing with its renewal process will be able to decipher precisely what every one of us is either capable of and is also standing for and is also doing. The party will be able to do so.
Are you not worried about the reputational damage onto the party? Part of why you have an integrity commission in the first place, Mr. President, is because you're trying to protect the image of the ANC.
Yes.
If the second highest position in the organization is in the news week in, week out, with questionable behavior, questionable connections, is that not cause for concern? You, as Cyril Ramaphosa, as leader of the ANC, when you watch that and you read those, and every other week you have to ask him what is going on, what comes to mind?
Well, it's good that you mentioned the Integrity Commission, because that is the body that we set up to deal with all these matters that have to do with integrity, that have to do with the ethical behavior of leaders. And that body is quite rigorous in dealing with various issues. And I think by and large, CD, we should allow that entity to do its work. And they are not blind to anything. They are quite focused, and they are the ones who make a determination.
But they are factional too, and I use that in quotes. Your Phala Phala report, this is the first time I see the Integrity Commission take a full 2 years to complete a report on an individual. That's what they did on the Phala Phala report. I mean, when we were at Nasrec, we were asking, how is it that the Integrity Commission has not completed its report on you, even when you've appeared before them? And does it make sense to you that the Integrity Commission can take 2 full years to compile a report on the leader of the ANC, unless, of course, they're trying to protect him?
No, they are not factional at all. And let me say to you, Clement, many cases do take a long time to be concluded.
This is the first one.
No, it's not the first one.
No, I would say Ace Makashuli's case took a while.
No,
I'll give you that.
Yes, and they do take a long time. And sometimes we pick on one and we think this is the rule. But quite often, you need to look at the processes that go through. And some of them are legal processes. Legal processes in our country take the longest time. There are people who are still on trial, who are still going through various trials and processes that started many years ago, and they have not been concluded. And so to pick on the Integrity Commission and say, you've taken so long to arrive at a determination is really to be unfair, because there are many processes that take a long time.
You may have realized we have not had lights out since you've arrived here, because we have load shedding that is suspended. Normally that's a reality. Are we going to see load shedding suddenly return after the 29th of May? South Africans have been without it for almost 2 months now.
We've been managing, and Eskom should really be applauded. And our Minister of Electricity working with them, and also the Minister of Public Enterprises. They've been working very closely with Eskom to see how we can continue revamping and maintaining our power stations on a programmed basis. And that has yielded the results that we see now. We've had more than 50 days without any load shedding. We're going into winter, and it might be a really cold and bitter winter. It is going to depend on the energy availability factor, whether we've got enough power stations that are available. Right now, we've hit an energy availability factor of 70%, and that is to be applauded. But as winter goes and as the demand goes up, that could taper down. So I can say that if we do have load shedding, it will not be as severe as what we have had in the past. Because in the past, we had really heavy-duty load shedding, largely because maintenance had been abandoned, had been, sort of downplayed for a number of years. So touch wood, let's hope this continues. And some people have said this was an election ploy. It is not an election ploy. It is the very hard and good work that is being done at Eskom.
We need to let you go, Mr. President.
I know I'm in trouble. I'm running over. Just have to ask you this question.
Yes.
You keep saying you'll return after the elections. What happens if you don't? I'm looking at KZN, and I think by and large you have immature leadership that's been elected into power. Beki Mtolo and Siboniso Duma have really been problematic to some degree as leaders of the ANC. What happens if you don't? You might lose Gauteng and KZN. Heck, you might lose the country. You might lose that majority. My parting shot really is, what happens when you're Cyril Ramaphosa presiding over an ANC that goes under?
Well, you see, you are dealing with a supposition that I'm convinced is not going to ensue or happen. So the ANC is going to be re-elected to govern this country. So your fears are misplaced, Miss Madia. I know that you are spending sleepless nights worrying about this.
Oh no, I'm not.
But what I'm happy about is that you are concerned about our country. Let me tell you one thing: the democracy that we have crafted has enough shock absorbers, has enough ability to be able to get our people and our country through to the challenges that may happen, like it did when we faced the unrest in July 2021 with COVID and many others. We are a very resilient people. We are a very resilient country. So fear not about any calamity that will descend on us. We've got people, the people of South Africa will not allow our democracy to descend into ashes.
I don't want to get into trouble with your team. We have to let you go now, Mr. President. Thank you so much for coming through to engage with us. I hope we can have you again after the elections, whether you make it or not. Can you make that commitment to come just chat with us for another hour?
I will be very pleased to come back and be your guest again as
former president
new
or president.
New president
Could be
of
anything.
South Africa.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Cyril Ramaphosa, the ANC president. It's 8 minutes now after 11 o'clock.
This is Eyewitness News.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. It's the breaking story this hour. Former President Jacob Zuma will not be allowed to run for a seat in Parliament for the MK party in the upcoming elections. The Constitutional Court has overturned the Electoral Court's previous ruling, giving his candidacy the thumbs up. The court has held that the 15-month prison sentence it gave Zuma for contempt in 2021 disqualifies him. Justice Leona Theron handed down the unanimous ruling this morning.
This court concludes that Mr. Zuma was convicted